Okay, we're live. We're good to go. No, what we'll do is speak to the camera.
Okay.
I'll look at you like I'm engaged and you have something important to say.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
even if you don't.
Okay. Thanks, man. I say that because it's such an encouragement to know that you're walking what you guys believe.
So, I will
Am I
randomly...
speaking this to you or this way?
Here's the deal. I don't know yet.
Okay.
So,
This has been very well thought out, just so
No,
you know,
it's-
as you can see.
it's very well thought out.
Organic.
Hey everyone, welcome. This is a thing I'm doing. I'm interviewing people that I love, I respect, I care about, and I got a brother right here, Casey Cleveland from the Avenue Church, Delray Beach, a fellow partner in the gospel. And before we get into the interview, I want to just explain how I know Casey. When we first moved to Delray Beach, we didn't know anybody, nada, zero. And we were just looking at Delray Beach and churches and websites and going to events, and we came across the Avenue Church, and within like maybe 2 weeks, I knew immediately we were like-minded, that they loved Jesus. I'm sure she's going to knock over that thing for sure. But I just knew that you guys just were loving Jesus, doing great work in ministry, and sent you guys an email, and I still remember... meeting at the spot with AJ. He just flew in, and so anyways, I just wanted to make sure I interview you because you've invested so much in our team, in our church already, even though you don't maybe know that. I'm sure you do, actually. It's okay. But you, John, Allison, we love you guys, we care about you guys, and it's fun to be able to get together and interview friends, people that I know that love Jesus, that are serving and doing great things. Let's start with this. The Avenue Church, Delray Beach, we're in the same city, same ministry. What is your assessment of our town? What, especially like downtown where we're at, what do you think ministry is like for you and your team?
Yeah, I love downtown. My assessment of downtown is that it is the gathering point of people, and wherever people are gathered, that's where I want to be, and that's where I think the gospel should be. And I think that as we get to build relationships, as we get to see the culture, know the culture, we're able to then influence the culture with the renewal of the gospel. And so it's hard to find a place like Delray that has such a gathering point in local cities here in South Florida. And that's what was really attractive to us about Delray, was there was this hybrid, not only a diversity of people, but also a main gathering point. And I thought, wow, what an awesome opportunity to be able to build relationships and share Christ.
Yeah. Now, in most worlds, I think we would understand and say you're successful, that you started a church, been faithful, serving in the community, have a lot of relationships, and really have grown. God's really been blessing you guys. It's awesome. It's amazing. But we know that also with change and with blessing there comes change. How have you and your team had to change through this short time? Because you've been, 3 years now?
Coming up in September.
Coming up in September, yeah. And now you went from a core team to a few hundred people to everyone knows you. There are spotlights on. You know, God's using you in a mighty way. But how has that affected you? Give us some steps of maybe how you've changed and what has gotten you through. Because I think change, especially in leadership, planning a church, or even just serving Jesus, is a part of life.
Right.
So, what are some steps of change or things that have gotten you through these last couple of years?
Sure. So CCEF, Christian Counseling Education Foundation, put out this tweet a couple days ago that I loved a couple weeks ago. Is the 3 keys to Christianity are humility, humility, and humility. And for us, for me personally, for our team, that has been so key. Is that we have to be lifelong disciples, lifelong learners. And that's been one of the things, is that I feel as though I'm always learning from those who have gone before, as we were talking about a little while ago, and those who are coming behind, in the sense that, you guys are coming up on, 6 months? Something like that?
Yeah.
And so I feel I can learn as much from what's going on at Redemption as I can from what has happened at Spanish River, which is a 42-year plus church. And so I just try to be very humble with the people that I surround myself with and try to see what God is doing in their life so that we can further learn.
What are some things that you can encourage us in, and like, what's the process of discipleship for you? What does that look like? Not just as a pastor, but just as a husband, as a dad, just as a man of God. How do you disciple people?
Mm-hmm. So I think I get great encouragement from the Apostle Paul, who says, basically, follow me as I follow Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he gives Timothy or some of the other guys that he's discipling great accessibility into his life with intentionality. So it's not just that they get to hang out, but that he's capturing and redeeming moments all the time, and pointing to Christ. So I have found that, I'll handle the family first, that I feel as though I need to pastor at home before I pastor anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, we are very intentional about what our kids and what my wife and I are doing all the time without being overbearing. For instance, my kids are very into sports, are 7 and 11. She plays on a travel volleyball team. He plays baseball. I coach. And so there's a constant, what we call kind of like gospel review to their performance. So, okay, whether it's practice or game, something happens, there's an emotion attached to it, failure, success. We try to always be using that as a discipleship moment, especially after, when we can sit down and really discuss, where was Christ in that moment. My daughter has a decision to make as to whether to play for Team 1 or Team 2 coming up. And on Team 2, she would be better. She would be more highlighted. And we were praying about it and reading Scripture. And so we just said, if you decide to go to Team 2, where you will be more of the spotlight, you need to make sure that you have a humble attitude and use the gifts that God's given you in order to bring Him glory and encourage others. So anyways, that's just a small slice of how we try to continue to be intentional about all situations. With my wife, we don't have a daily time where we sit down and we're in a chapter and we're like exegeting the epistles and things like that. We she asked me the other day, hey, where in my life do you see? We were at the beach, actually enjoying a beach day, which I highly recommend.
Yes, it's pretty amazing
here in South Florida.
Yeah.
And she just said, hey, where in my life do you think that I need change? Where in my life do you think God is maybe not penetrating the way He should be? And we just had this beautiful talk about, and I had nothing planned, but it just kind of like rolled, and we talked, and we were able to just do life together, but in a very intentional way. And so we always, and then I'll be asking her, what's God doing in your heart? What are you reading? What has He been showing you in His Word? So that's kind of what family life looks like. And my kids and my wife know, and I try to say it and then back it up with action, that they are my first church, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I have people around me that help to make that a reality, that actually ask me difficult questions to make sure that that's happening in my life. Church planner, and then I have a guy that has mentored me for years. As far as discipling people within the church, it's a similar process, the accessibility with intentionality. And I've found that I have to be somewhat limited as to how many I take on.
Yeah.
And so I'm attracted to numbers in the flesh,
Mm-hmm.
and then God backs me up and says it's not about the quantity, it's about what, like, the transformation that I want to do in these people's lives.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on.
Very cool. We talked about this earlier. We'll maybe be able to do just one or two more questions.
Mm-hmm.
How do you measure success? Just been asking everyone that I interview this question. How do you measure it?
Just lots of people and lots of money. I'm totally playing. Totally playing. Sorry, strike that. No, really actually struggling through this. Daniel and I have been talking about it, and I myself am looking for those metrics. I look to the scriptures. I'm like, okay, how did Jesus measure success? What about Paul? And I'm without discounting, the fact that like, on this day, this many people got saved, and on so growth. I think there's a real good side to growth. Like, God's doing a work, and that's awesome. But so you asked me the question: how do we measure success? We call it gospel faithfulness, and so we measure success in the sense that the people that God has entrusted to us in this particular season, Are the husbands loving their wives more like Christ loved his church than they did 6 months ago? Are the children falling more in love with Jesus? Are we creating a culture where the gospel and Jesus is the hero, or where we're the hero? And hopefully it's the former, not the latter. Success would be we look at our community groups, and we look at not just that did they meet that particular week, but did they have relationship outside of their normal meeting time? Did they meet for breakfast? Were they invested into one another's lives? We're beginning these missional communities, kind of a Soma theme to them, which will actually have a targeted mission, if you will, and then they will be constantly pursuing either like a school or a neighborhood. So those are going to have a little bit more of an intentional focus, and we'd like to see our Connect groups sort of be transformed by that. Yeah. So gospel faithfulness, I don't mean to be ambiguous, but I think it's more life transformation than it is like, wow, we had a lot of people come out for Easter. Like, we're not called to call a crowd, right? Like, and Jesus, when he actually got down to his like hardcore preaching, people left. I'm encouraged by that. I don't know about you, but like if people are leaving,
I'm just a hardcore preacher.
Yeah, that's awesome. You started that way. That's awesome. Thanks. I'm getting it. So it's I really try. I actually don't know the count of the money that comes in or the people that come, and I purposely stay away from that because I have pride issues. Mm-hmm. So what I love to hear are the stories of how God has taken somebody from years of addiction into a week of sobriety, and like at least asking about this person Jesus. Like that to me is a huge win, rather than wow, we had a well polished service that a lot of people liked.
Yeah. One last thing. Any last word or encouragement that you want to just give our team?
Yeah.
Any last final thoughts?
Yeah. So Team Redemption, you guys are awesome. You are our heroes. We were given a lot to start with. We were given resources and people and support from a local church that was like 8 miles away, and you guys did the parachute, just kind of like dropped in because you're being faithful to a call, rather than like what was comfortable for you guys. And so we have so much encouragement from watching you, because we weren't called to that. We don't know the taste of what it is to do what you do on a weekly basis. And I say that because it's such an encouragement to know that you're walking what you guys believe, and you're doing it you're being asked to have like a heart check in all sorts of areas. I mean, Daniel's working at 2 full-time jobs basically, and to see the way that he pours into his team, he pours into the city. I know you guys. I know that you guys all have other things going on as well, other jobs, other activities, and yet you're so committed to what God's called you to. Man, I would just say, even for our sake, that you would continue, because we have selfishly just been so super encouraged to see your faithfulness in the unknown. You guys have just taken another step and another step and another step, and I love it. I love you guys. We really believe in you and what God is doing there, and I know that God has already blessed it. I know that He has brought further saturation of the gospel to the city of Delray. I know that lost people have heard the gospel because you guys said yes, and more lost people will. And so we love you guys. We count you on the same team as brothers and sisters, and don't look back. Like your hand is to the plow. Don't look back, because we're actually depending on your faithfulness. It encourages us that much. So love you guys.
Team Redemption, Team Avenue. That's it. Awesome.